He was the Mafia Chairman, reckless, untouchable, and feared. She was an innocent nurse, desperate for stability. One night in a gilded cage changed everything. Hyun-woo, cold. You are no longer Talia the nurse. You are the vessel of my heir. You are under my control. Talia, defiant. I'm carrying your heir. If you touch my family, you lose your legitimacy. He promised her safety through control. She showed him love through honesty. But what happens when the only way to protect her is to give up his empire? Before we begin, please like, subscribe, and share.
Hyun-woo's commitment was not just emotional. It was strategic and devastatingly final. He spent the next month quietly orchestrating the transfer of his most volatile assets, the underground clubs, the illicit import schemes, and the protection rackets, to a network of former rivals, effectively dismantling his own playboy empire. He retained only the legitimate, publicly traded sectors of the conglomerate that provided necessary cover and vast, traceable wealth. His traditional family elders were furious. His reckless fraud had been politically useful, but abandoning the core mafia operations was seen as treason against tradition. Hyun-woo called a final dramatic meeting. He didn't ask for permission. He announced his intent. The organization requires stability, not endless war, Hyun-woo stated, standing beside a heavily pregnant Talia, who wore a dress chosen not for fashion, but for defiance. The life I led threatened the heir. I have eliminated the threat by eliminating the source. I will be the legitimate chairman of the legal assets. The child is secure. Talia is my wife and co-parent. Not a vessel. She will not be touched by your filth. He presented them with a simple marriage certificate, notarized and registered. He had done it privately, legally, without fanfare or obligation to their rituals. His love, confirmed through his massive sacrifice of power and freedom, was stronger than the constraints of the mafia world. That evening, back in the quiet sanctuary of the East Wing, the tension that had defined their lives finally broke. You gave up everything, Talia whispered, tracing the hard line of his jaw. The power, the clubs, your distraction. Hyun-woo pulled her into a soft embrace, careful of her stomach. The fear of losing you and the baby was more painful than losing my empire, he confessed, burying his face in her hair. I used the playboy image to distract from the pressure and my fear of commitment. You forced me to commit. And I realized commitment is the only real power I need. He looked into her eyes, no longer the ruthless chairman, but a man profoundly in love. I promised you a safe, honest life, he murmured. I intend to keep that promise. He leaned down, finally closing the distance. The kiss wasn't demanding or desperate, but slow, deliberate, and full of the love they had fought so hard to find. It was a promise sealed on their lips, a future free of bloodshed and deceit. His lips were firm and tender, conveying years of unexpressed emotion. Talia responded with all the earnest love she felt for the protective man he had become, the man who had traded his empire for her. I love you, Hyun-woo, she said against his mouth. Not the chairman, just you. I love you, Talia, my honest woman, he responded, resting his forehead against hers. Our life starts now. The peace was brief. Just hours later, early the next morning, Talia's water broke. The delivery was not in a cold, sterile hospital,
but in the specialized birthing suite Hyun-woo had secretly built within the penthouse, surrounded by his most trusted security and an approved medical team. Hyun-woo was a terrified wreck, yet he refused to leave her side. He held her hand, his own trembling, sweat beading on his brow as she labored. He was completely out of control and completely devoted. "I'm here," he repeated, his voice choked with emotion, his dark eyes never leaving hers. "I've got you, Talia. I will always protect you." After hours of labor, the agonizing pain culminated in a beautiful, overwhelming moment. The triumphant cry of a new life filled the room. The nurse placed the perfectly healthy, screaming baby, a boy, the official legitimate heir, on Talia's chest. Hyun-woo knelt beside the bed, his formidable frame shaking with unshed tears. He gently reached out and touched the baby's tiny, wrinkled hand. He looked at Talia, exhausted but radiant, and then at his son. The Mafia Chairman was gone. All that remained was a man who had sacrificed his power for love. "Our son," Hyun-woo breathed, the tears finally falling onto his cheek. "Our safe, honest life has begun." Talia looked at the man who had threatened her family and then saved it. The playboy who had chosen domestic peace over his sprawling empire. The danger was over. The only thing left was their future. 6 months after the birth of their son, the sprawling penthouse was no longer a gilded cage. It was simply home. The noise that now filled the East Wing wasn't the distant hum of a criminal enterprise, but the happy sounds of a baby discovering his hands. The air, once thick with tension and expensive cologne, smelled faintly of baby powder and Talia's favorite herbal tea. Hyun-woo had fulfilled his sacrifice and his promise. He was still the chairman, commanding a vast, legitimate business empire, but the recklessness was gone. His time was now divided between strategic board meetings and quiet afternoons in the sunlit nursery. The playboy image was dead, replaced by the profound, exhausted dedication of a young father. One afternoon, Talia found him standing by the window of the nursery, holding their son, Ji-hoon, up to see the city below. Hyun-woo was dressed down in a cashmere sweater, his attention entirely focused on the baby who represented his freedom. "He won't know that life," Hyun-woo murmured to Talia as she approached, leaning her head on his shoulder. "He won't know the velvet ropes, the late nights, or the constant threat. This is his city, but he'll inherit the good parts." "You made sure of that," Talia said, kissing the shoulder that no longer carried the weight of the mafia. "You traded your crown for a crib." The transition had not been easy. Talia still had to learn to navigate the immense wealth and the residual political pressures. She used her resources wisely, finally hiring quality care for her mother, who was recovering well, and ensuring her brother had every opportunity. She even began working again, setting up a foundation focused on providing healthcare access for families affected by organized crime. A quiet, powerful act of reclamation. Their love, born in conflict and sealed by commitment, had deepened into a resilient partnership. Hyun-woo still exercised absolute control, but it was now over their security, not her person. He was fiercely protective, driven by the lingering ghosts of his past. "The elders still hate me," Talia admitted one evening as they shared a quiet dinner. Hyun-woo reached across the mahogany table and took her hand, his thumbs stroking her wedding ring. "They hate that you won, that my commitment to you was stronger than my commitment to their tradition. They hate that you legitimized me without corruption." He paused, a familiar, possessive light entering his eyes. "You are still the only one who sees the cost, Talia. I don't wear the mask anymore because I don't need the distraction. I just need you." He stood up, walking around the table to pull her into his arms. The kiss was slow and reaffirming, a daily reminder of the choice they had made. "I gave up a piece of the empire," he whispered. resting his forehead against hers. "But you gave me a whole new life." Later, standing on the balcony of their private terrace, one of the few truly exposed areas of the penthouse, now heavily reinforced, they watched the sunset paint the skyline in fiery hues. Talia leaned against Hyun-woo's chest, the cool evening breeze a soothing contrast to the warmth of his strong arms around her. She looked at the city lights, the glittering towers, the dark streets where his former life operated, and the single constant glow from the nursery window. She had been the innocent nurse, forced into the path of the reckless Mafia Chairman by a single, desperate night. She had carried his heir, defied his threats, and broken through his fear of commitment. In the end, his love for her and the life inside her proved to be the only power strong enough to force him to choose legitimacy and peace. Talia had found stability, not in her meticulous nursing plans, but in the volatile, fiercely protective heart of the man who now held her tight. The playboy was gone. The protector remained. "We are safe, Hyun-woo," she said, her voice filled with quiet certainty. He tightened his grip, looking out over the silent, expansive city that he now governed with a gentler hand. "Always," he promised.
Thank you so much for watching. Your support really means the world to me. If you enjoyed this episode, please like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you'll know as soon as we drop another story.